for some fantasy talk, fantasy baseball, fantasy football. With us right now is Jeff Erickson, who you can follow on Twitter at Jeff_Erickson. Check out his work at Rotowire.com, your one-stop shop for all fantasy sports. Last week, Jeff took out the old books, showed us the first ever annual guide. The newest one is out, by the way, for football fans. You can check out Rotowire's football magazine now at Barnes, and we're all, magazines are sold, and get a copy of that. I went on eBay looking just out of curiosity, and the best I found was the 03 baseball magazine. There were a bunch of those copies on eBay. Couldn't find the original ones, though. Those are, I think, too hard these days, Jeff, from the collector standpoint. Aren't you always interested when you have like something like this, what people actually, are trying to sell these old magazines for? It fascinates me.
I probably should do that. I used to do that with the old Bill James baseball abstracts. I got a couple of those. I got one of those as a Christmas present one time. I asked for it there. I have an old, another one of his, annual stat guides. It's good stuff there. I was like, we actually found it in my house, my old house, when I was helping my parents move. Kim's like, should we throw that out? No. But I haven't done that with our magazines. So I will, because now I'm inspired, but I will.
Field of Dreams game is tomorrow night. That's going to be at the movie set. They've built a brand new $5 million state-of-the-art complex across from where the baseball field sits in the cornfield. It kind of makes me wonder, where do you have Field of Dreams on some of your favorite baseball movies of all time list?
It's a great question. I'd say Major League is probably still at the top for me. I love that movie. Field of Dreams is high on the list. So is The Natural, League of Their Own.
Bull Durham.
Yes. Bad News Bears has to be high up there. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so many good baseball movies it's definitely in the upper echelon. It's funny. Costner made some other good movies, but he made a lot of baseball movies.
He did. He made 3 of them, actually. I think For Love of the Game was the third behind Bull Durham and
not nearly as good, by the way.
No,
that doesn't rate in the same echelon for me there.
No, the highlight of For Love of the Game is having Vince Scully give you the soundtrack to the movie.
Yeah, the Naked Gun baseball scene was pretty good. It doesn't qualify as a baseball movie per se, but that was pretty good.
I like that. Pride of the Yankees, another one out there. If you like the old style movies.
I've seen that like 3 times. I really like it, except for the scene when he's on his date and they go to watch the ballet, and it just goes on forever, Steve. It's a different era of filmmaking, and I'm no filmmaker, so far be it for me to criticize, but man, that scene just sucks the wind out of it for me there.
I think the coolest thing about Pride of the Yankees is that Babe was still alive when they made the movie, so he was able to have an actual cameo of himself as he was there embracing Lou when he was sick.
Yeah, that was awesome.
So the point is this. There are so many, and there's also 42 that came out recently, and you start looking at some of the more recent baseball movies. There's been some good ones we've seen. It's tough to try to really bang the drum slowly, think of where, some of the all-time greats lie, because it's going to be controversial no matter how you try to draw it up.
Yep, and I guarantee you we neglected to name one here that people are like, how are you going to do that? People should tweet at us right now. What other baseball movies are we forgetting? Because hey, I love this sort of interaction there. So please tweet at us here. My Twitter is at Jeff_Erickson. Steve, you've been, you're just straight up at Steve Kaplowitz, right?
That's right. As simple as it gets. That's right. No underscore, just Steve Kaplowitz. And there's also 600 ESPN El Paso. We got a bunch of handles, and you've also got at Rotowire. That's important too. You could do a whole podcast on baseball movies.
Easily.
I know. In fact, there's been some stinkers too. I don't want to get into those, but there's been plenty of bad movies to go along with the good ones.
Almost all the sequels, for instance, are pretty bad. And it's a shame. It's, I wanted to like Major League 2, and I just couldn't. I tried. I really tried. It's just not nearly as good.
Still better than Major League 3.
No, I didn't even see that one. After Major League 2, I didn't bother with 3.
Good for you. All right, let's talk a little baseball right now as things are heating up here, and the trade deadline is over, and we're starting to see guys come back. Although it's supposed to be now guys getting healthy, and yet Mookie Betts is going to the IL, another blow for the Dodgers, who are still trying to catch the Giants right now.
Yeah, and blow for fantasy players too, because he was day to day once again at the beginning of a week, and he goes on the IL later midweek. You had to make a tough call. They didn't play on Monday, so even tougher with lack of information. Maybe your pivot for that particular week played on Monday, so you had little choice in the matter there. It really stinks, and it obviously I feel bad for Mookie, but I feel bad for me. It's my fantasy league. I feel bad for that, but it kind of raises the question: what are you going to do with them next year? Are you going to still take him at the end of the first round? Are you going to buy the dip, or are you going to just let someone say, "Oh, he's too fragile. He screwed me last year"? That's always the question.
Now, here's the thing: Mookie was considered this year one of the elite players in the whole game of baseball, like top three, short list, just elite, right? So was Christian Yelich a couple of years ago, and look at how he's fallen over the last 2 seasons due to all the injuries he suffered. So sometimes, no matter how great you are, your career gets derailed by injuries, and you might never get back to those levels again.
Are we sure that it's derailed by injuries in the case of Yelich? I'm not 100% sure about that one, Steve. I mean, the fact that his strikeout rate dropped, spiked a full 10% higher than his career norms. Something else is going on there, I thought. But
you think so? Really? You think it's not just injuries with him? Interesting.
It might be in-game video, might be something. I mean, something's off. Maybe it is injuries and we just don't know about it yet. Or maybe he's just never fully healed from when he wrecked his, he fouled that ball off his shin and wrecked his leg or his knee, I guess it was, and was never the same player since he came back.
Maybe it throws off the timing. Maybe with your knee is not 100%, you're trying to compensate in other places. I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but we've seen injuries happen before, which have led to players becoming the shell of what they once were. Tyler Glasnow just had Tommy John surgery, and of course, he still blames the fact that baseball cracked down on the grip, and that ultimately led him to getting hurt and having Tommy John surgery, which, again, it sounds pretty far-fetched. But on the flip side, when you're used to throwing a certain way all these years and then you got to switch up mid-season, I can understand how some guys have struggled more than others.
Well, it's not just cracking down. It's what they crack down on. They crack down on everything, not just like the spider tack, but less tacky substances. Like I think it was in his case, wasn't it sunscreen?
Yeah, bullfrog, right?
Yeah. So a little, less pernicious, and yet they still crack down on that, and he overcompensated. That's the theory. Again, it might be an allocation error. That's kind of one of the things that's kind of tough to try to figure out there.
No doubt. Meanwhile, speaking of injuries, Fernando Tatis Jr. is supposed to come back, but here is the kicker, which kind of makes things interesting for dynasty owners and players drafting next season. It looks like he's going to play in the outfield the rest of the way, which suddenly means dual eligibility, shortstop and outfield in 2022. The downside would be if he really takes to the outfield, this could be next year could be the last season you get to enjoy Fernando Tatis at shortstop, which would be a big blow considering he's been so good in that position, which is a loaded position in fantasy.
Yeah, but he's still such an elite player. You don't really care so much. I mean, yeah, you'd love to have him at shortstop, but let's face it, Mookie Betts, who we talked about earlier, came up as a second baseman.
Yep.
Manny Machado came up as a shortstop. We don't mind that he's a third baseman now. Unless your league accounts for defense, you're in a simulation league. That's where it really, really matters. In a fantasy league, straight up, Acuna was still, debatably number one overall, unless it was Tatis or DeGrom. Point is, it wasn't a scarce position that caused him to be number one overall. It was just the fact that his stats were so good. So if it extends his career and he's enthusiastic about the position, which it sounds like he is, I'm all for it.
Funny you mentioned Acuna, Tatis, and DeGrom. All three hurt, and all three had great seasons derailed due to injuries this year.
Yeah, I know. And that's been a running theme of this season. I had someone ask me earlier, do you expect people to quit fantasy this year because of all these injuries and how the disproportionate impact on their teams? I'd say if you're new to fantasy, maybe. I think veteran players knew A, that this happens, and B, there are, it was going to be a weird year. Coming off the COVID year, 60 games, lack of buildup, that we're going to be almost really leaning into a situation there where that could be a big risk of happening.
And we're back right now with Jeff Erickson from Rotowire.com, your one-stop shop for fantasy sports, as we talk baseball, and now we'll talk some football on the program. Again, I'm excited about the first week of preseason games. Should I be excited, or for the most part, will all the regulars be sitting and you're just going to be watching a bunch of rookies this weekend?
You can those statements might not be in conflict. You should be excited, and it's all going to be rookies and guys battling for spots. You know what? Watching guys battle for their dream, I mean, that's kind of cool. Seeing I want to see Najee Harris, more of him. He's going to get a heavy workload. I know that's something I saw going across. I want to see Jordan Love. I'm actually excited to see what they've gotten him. I mean, we didn't get to see him at all last year. There was no preseason last year, so he needs the reps. I want to see, what the Packers saw in him. It's been a year and a half since that happened. We knew he was a project, but should have, learned a lot by then. So there's a lot of things I want to see.
Matter of fact, I guess that kind of goes into your 3 sneaky sleepers you need to draft, which is up at Rotowire right now, where you're talking about 3 players that, you know what, I love sleepers, and this is probably the best time to really scout sleepers, because when they come on and really show themselves in practicing games, suddenly they just jump on the radar.
Yeah, and I did a pretty wide range of that, and we even did a bonus one there. My definition was guys you're drafting after you filled out your starting lineup. So these are, after running back 50, after wide receiver 60, after tight end and quarterback 15 guys, unless you're doing an extreme weight on that position sort of thing. So that was that kind of thing. So I'm glad you pointed that out. That's always a fun one. Alan Soslowski does a lot of good hosting for us now on those videos that we're trying to do a lot more of now. And you can check out our YouTube channel, the Rotowire YouTube channel. Check that out also. But yeah, I talked about Terrace Marshall on the Carolina Panthers. That is someone who I really want to see. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with that offense. I think that Joe Brady's a great coordinator. I'm kind of curious to see Sam Darnold too, for that matter.
I was looking at Jim Coventry's daily NFL training camp notes, which is a good staple for those people that want to follow football on a daily basis. And he talked about Dak, and now the plan right now could be for Dak to get back and start practicing full-time next week. He just was featured in the very first NFL Hard Knocks with the Cowboys this week on HBO. And I know Cowboy fans can't wait to get number 4 back under center so they can see him for the season.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see him because A, he's coming back from the ankle problem, and B, you just want to see a quarterback be able to throw. It seems like a prerequisite for the job. But especially because he's one that we're spending a pretty valuable draft pick to go get him. If you're going to go get him 4th round, 5th round, something in that range, one of the top 5 QBs, you want to see a little bit more out of him. I mean, what the offense is like when he's going good, but you just need to make sure that he's 100%.
Yep, absolutely right. So really for you, are you right now just kind of monitoring as a fantasy player certain situations heading into the preseason game, and then you'll have some good takeaways after watching the action this weekend?
Yeah, and just making sure people don't get hurt. I'm going to watch job battles a little bit there. Although you got to be careful with that because sometimes it's an uneven circumstances. Someone might be battling for the job. Say, for instance, Justin Fields, and he's going with the second team against second team defenses. Might be a far different result than Andy Dalton gets when he gets to play with the first team offense. Although it looks like Allen Robinson probably won't play the preseason opener after tweaking his hammy.
How big is it hearing the news that Carson Wentz could be ready by week 1, especially if you either have drafted him or you're considering drafting him in a fantasy league this season?
I would not be considering drafting him unless I'm in a super flex league, but it is. I mean, it matters a lot for Jonathan Taylor, obviously, and especially Quentin Nelson. That's the one I'm watching even more than Wentz, to be honest with you. Yeah. I still think you can have inadequate running quarterback play and still have a running back that does okay. It helped to have a better quarterback and a better offense, but it's not the end of the world. But losing your top offensive lineman, along with having Eric Fisher, their left tackle, working his way back slowly, and you're losing the entire left side of the offensive line, which is where Taylor got most of his work done last year. That's what I'm concerned about more than anything.
So for Wentz, as far as you're concerned, even if he's healthy or healthy enough to play week 1, he could be on his back so much because of the left side of the line, it might not even matter.
Yeah, and he might not be good. We just don't know that. That's the thing.
That's a good point.
He could be better than Rivers was last year, and that's maybe not even that high of a bar to clear. I think Rivers was satisfactory. I don't think he was good, but Wentz was flat out bad last year. And whether it was Wentz, whether it was Doug Peterson's fault, the play calling fault, the offensive line in Philly, the lack of healthy wide receivers, there's lots of attributions there. But I need to be proven that he can play again before I'm going to invest that much in him.
Give me a preseason Jeff Erickson value meter on Matt Stafford and where you kind of have him right now in the quarterback picture as we head into the season.
So, the value meter, I'm glad you brought that up. I rank guys by position for the week, and I'll do a week one probably in the next I'd say probably in 2 weeks from now, I'll start doing that. But
Okay.
I am, but I'm high on Stafford. I really like him in that offense, the Sean McVay offense. I think I like it for the Rams receivers too. I mean, Stafford is a huge improvement over Goff. I think they'll go back to more 11 sets instead of 2 tight end sets. I don't think they're going to be trying to protect themselves against the quarterback as much. I think they're going to be a little bit doing a lot more downfield stuff than they did last year. So I'm excited about that.
Will you have Goff in your probably bottom 5 or bottom 10 as far as starting quarterbacks?
Yeah, bottom third. There's definitely a lot of, there's a pretty low, a pretty big group of bottom players there too. Like, I mean, I'm going to put Zach Wilson down there until I see him, but at least he's got upside. I'm not convinced that Goff has that sort of upside there. Got to credit his agent for getting in that contract. That was a heck of a job by him.
I don't know if you really revisit your week 1 value meter at the end of the season, but are there usually a lot of players like quarterbacks that will start the year in the bottom third and then work their way up into the top third before the season's out?
Always a couple, always. And that's why you wait on quarterbacks often too. Although I will say there's been some separation between the top quarterbacks and the next tier, that it's been to the point where I'm considering taking an early quarterback. It's not always a wait on the quarterback situation.
Yeah. Let's talk about what you have coming up right now at rotowire.com as far as football notes. We touched on a few with Jim Coventry's daily training camp notes and your column on 3 sneaky sleepers. What else would you like to profile right now for the football section?
Jim Coventry did another awesome article called it's an ADP battle. This time comparing Swift versus Dobbins. And who is the third back? Montgomery, I think. Check that out on RotoWire. Jim's been doing great work. Mario Puig's if you're into best ball leagues, especially on Underdog, Mario Puig's got a great series. He's ongoing. He hosted with me on the show today. Got a new podcast up with Pete Overzet. He does the Fantasy Life newsletter. That's an offshoot of ESPN. Really good stuff from him as well. So it was a fun podcast today. So I invite you to check it all out. We got you a lot of different angles.
How about baseball? As far as baseball fans go, I saw Todd Zola's Z Files, his top 350 for the rest of the season hitters. You've got that profile, but there's a lot of good material up this week for baseball fans.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned Todd Zola's article. The other thing is James Anderson's Farm Futures article. We have a hard hit rate for minor leaguers on the site. That's really hard to find. We got some good stuff. Baseball Info Solutions does the work on this, and we have a feed from them, and it's fantastic stuff. And James uses that data to show how he made some changes in his prospect rankings. Really, really fascinating stuff. Highly recommend checking it out.
I love that. If you're a prospect hound like me, that sounds like a lot of fun. So you can really see how hard hit balls correlate into potential value as players are moving up the ladder. Are there any hard hit ball rates that surprised you a little bit from guys you wouldn't have expected?
Let me pull up the article. There were a few guys that stood out. I want to say a couple of them were, there's Anthony Volpe. I don't know how to pronounce his last name yet, but he's really made a big strides in James rankings. Riley Green's another one with the Tigers that sped up. On the downside, that's where there's some interesting names too that, kind of disturbing for me, like Tristan Cassis on the Red Sox. It's a guy I traded for in a league earlier this year. He's not having a great year. Hard hit rate's really low. So I'm a little bummed out about that. Something to watch for there. And then, even has a time to panic section. JJ Bleday of the Marlins is another one that putting together a really lousy, rotten season, and the hard hit rate supports, or lack thereof, supports that it's for real.
Tell you somebody else that numbers aren't as good as expected. That's CJ Abrams, who is the super prospect for the Padres.
Yeah, that's right. And, he's had injuries, and I think that's part of it there. He's out for the season with that fractured left tibia. I don't know if he suffered the injury in a collision, I think July 4th, a few days before July 4th. But I don't know. It's another thing that's kind of disturbing. I was really hoping to have a big strides from him this year. He was really highly rated in a lot of rankings. I don't know what it'll be next year, but I bet it'll be down a little bit.
Rotowire.com/free gets you that free 10-day trial, no credit card down. You get to see everything we're talking about and then some.
Yes, sir. Rotowire.com/free. And hey, it's baseball draft season, or if it isn't yet, it's getting ready for football draft season. So go, talk to your league mates, see when you're going to have your draft if you haven't heard from them yet.
Terrific stuff, and it's all up at rotowire.com. Jeff, great job as always. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks. You get your vacation week next week. Have a great time. Enjoy it, and I'll look forward to having you back here in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve.